So since we're playing with knives and other sharp edge cutting tools this afternoon, let me tell you a story. Several years ago, they wanted me to do a presentation for a Pathfinder group on 8 or 10 different knife safety rules. And I forget what the exact number was now, but anyway, I'm looking different sources, trying to come up with that number and having a hard time. I think I got maybe 5 or 6 pretty good, but anything more than that I was really struggling with. And so I started looking at the rules that I'd collected so far, and I realized these are all just basic different expressions of the same rule. And so what I teach is what I call the #1 most important knife safety rule. Okay, it's much easier to remember one rule than it is to remember 10 or 12, right? You know, it's like, oh, I forgot number 9 and oops, I just cut my thumb off. So the #1 most important knife safety rule, whenever the knife is out of the sheath, okay, or if it's a pocket knife, whenever it's open, you always be thinking, where's it going to go if it slips? Okay, carve away from you. Why? Because if it slips, it's going out in the air rather than into you. Okay, when you hand somebody the knife, you hold the back of the blade, offer them the handle. Why? Because if it slips, they don't get cut, you don't get cut. Okay? So like all of these rules, different ones, they all boil down to that one rule. Just always be thinking, where's it going to go if it slips? Now, as we noted this in the study this morning, we're going to be in groups. And so because we're in groups, we need to worry about the other people in our group, that we don't stab them either. And so a few years ago, we learned about the concept of a blood bubble. And I really like this idea. I wish I'd heard about it a long, long time ago. Blood bubble is, picture a sphere that you're in, like a bubble that you're in. And the edge of the bubble is anywhere the tip of this knife can reach, okay? Around me. It's my blood bubble. So if I'm carving and somebody else walks into my blood bubble, if I slip, they could get stabbed or cut. And so we need to be talking about knife safety. For example, usually what I'll do if I'm carving away and they're walking past, I'll just stop carving until they're out of my blood bubble. And once they're out, then I can start carving again. But if they stay to talk or something like that, I'll tell them, you know, like, you're in my blood bubble right now, I'm carving, might have to explain what the blood bubble is, but basically I don't want to stab you if I happen to slip. And so, you know, please stand over there just out of the blood bubble, or stand over here because I'm carving this way right now, but if I switch directions, then you're going to have to relocate too. So if you can remember those two things, you know, the first one, what's the #1 most important knife safety rule? Always be thinking, where's it going to go if it slips? And then because we're in a group, we need to worry about the blood bubble thing too. Okay? That's all I'm going to burden you with for knife safety rules, because that pretty much covers it all. I need to tell you another story too. There was a 5-day survival program that we were doing, and there was this one mother-daughter, you know, group that came to the program. And one of the first things we did in the program, and still do if we do one of these kind of programs, is we'll just take the people out in the woods a little bit, kind of give an introduction to the program, and, you know, like, okay, here we are out in the woods, what would you need to survive? And just talk about that a little bit. And we have found over the years, we give people detailed lists of what to bring. And frequently they will still show up without things, or they'll show up with something else that's a piece of junk. And they can't participate in the program because they don't have the equipment that they need to do the stuff. Again, you can't learn how to play a violin unless you have a violin to play. Okay, you can't learn how to carve with a knife unless you have a knife to carve with. So having the right equipment figures into that. And people would consistently show up without stuff, or with, you know, and ask them like, why didn't you bring it? It was on the list. Well, I didn't think I'd need it, you know, that kind of thing. So we counseled with some people, and they says, well, why don't you just go ahead and get the equipment and then charge the people, charge us. So we started doing that, which is a bit of a hassle, but at least people will have what they needed. So one of the first things we would do in the program, in this particular one I was telling you about with the mother-daughter group, we were handing the knives out, and you know, then we handed the knives out, talked about knife safety. Probably before we did that, I think I inhaled a bug. Sorry. There's got these guys flying around in my face.
You got water?
Yummy bug.
I do have water in here. Yeah. No, this one wasn't yummy.
Yeah, my dad ate a tick once.
Your dad ate a tick once?
Telling on you.
Did you? You ate a tick?
Okay. So, anyway, we went through the program and everything, and then a couple years later, I had come back to the same area. It was with a different program altogether, but because these people were in the area, they came to visit on Sabbath afternoon, and we were having like a picnic out in the lawn Sabbath afternoon, and they were there, and there was another couple people that had been in the class, and then some of their friends that were there, and we were eating, and because the people that were in the class was there, you know, conversation went around to the class that we'd done a couple years earlier, and this story came out, and I was really glad to be there to hear the story. So when the mom got her knife, you know, in the class, she was like, oh, this is cute, what do I, you know, what's this for? And the way she said it, you know, alluded like we used it a lot. And so one of the other people that weren't in the class said, oh, so you use the knife quite a bit? And the daughter right away said, yeah, we used it for everything. And when you're living out, okay, in survival mode, that's about the long and the short of it. You use your knife for lots and lots of stuff. A lot of people, you know, nowadays don't carry a knife. I don't know how they get by, but I want to encourage you. I opened a can of worms when I said this with the last group, so I'm going to risk it again. But I want to encourage you, especially when you're out on the farm, so to speak, or out in the woods, to be packing a knife, okay? So that you will have it to use if the opportunity, you know, the opportunity will arise. You know, whether it's cutting up some plant to sample wild edibles, or whether it's to carve a useful object, whatever, you're going to end up using your knife a lot. Thank you.
What's carving?
So, we're going to play with knives the rest of the afternoon pretty much. Now, I've got this maple. You guys already identified that. There's some more down there. We'll bring it up as we need it. And as I'm looking around, I'm guessing that there's people, what?
Before he goes on, when he says playing with knives, children, he's not talking about just playing with knives. He's talking about working with knives. So you're not allowed to play with knives. And when you're using a knife, you need to have your parents be right there helping you until you learn good knife safety skills, okay? So even though Jim used the term playing with knives, he's not really talking about playing with knives. Careful what you say.
Careful right now.
Yeah, be careful.
Okay.
Hey, you play with guns now? Carhartt, just like me, a Carhartt shirt.
I know, they make good shirts, don't they?
Yeah, and I have a Carhartt jacket.
Awesome. I don't have a Carhartt jacket, but they're nice too. My son-in-law has a Carhartt jacket.
Yes, I have one. Yeah, but my Carhartt's brown.
Oh, okay. Good. I think his is
It's like
brown too. Yeah, maybe it's the same color, huh?
It's
Not the shirt. Okay. Anyway. All right. how many of you have a knife with you already? Let's just kind of take stock of what we got. Okay, if you already have a knife, does your knife need sharpening?
Yes.
Okay, if your knife needs sharpening, I'm going to send you over to Becky. She's got her knife sharpening stuff out, and you can sharpen your knife.
Give me your stuff.
And Becky, I'm going to ask you to work on the table. I mean, you're fine there for right now, but when we actually get going here.
If you want me to run the table, bring it over to me.
Yes. It's just right over there.
Over there.
Well, hang out here just with us a minute here and get all of what I'm going to say, and then I'm going to quiet and everybody's going to go to work. So if your knife needs sharpening, talk to Becky. If you have your own knife and it's sharp, that's great. You can go to work. If you need a knife, how many of you are going to need a knife? I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, okay. I have some loaner knives here. These are very similar to the knife that we use with our programs. Little different model, but the same company. The reason these are Mora knives. Okay, Moras are they're just a no-nonsense good knife. All right. Inexpensive. You can get them for like, I don't know, $11, $12, $13, $15, that range anyway. I think these are, anyway, right in there in that price range. It's gone up just a little bit recently, but whatever.
How do you spell that?
Pardon? M-O-R-A. Yeah, Mora. They're out of Sweden, and they're available online fairly easily. So just look up Mora knives. They make all sorts of different varieties, but one of their basic models you can get for, like under 15 bucks or in that same price range there. I really recommend that if you need a knife, that's what you start out with, because you learn what a good knife can do, how to work with a good knife, what to expect from a good knife. Then if you want to go on and spend a bunch more money for something nicer, go right ahead. But at least you're not spending, 50, 60 bucks for a piece of junk just simply because it looks cool. All right? Or somebody else said it was a good knife, whatever. Just get some experience with a simple, plain, good knife, and these are kind of the best way to go with that. It's not the only way to go, but yes.
Have you heard of Leatherman? Is
But
that
make sure
a
you keep
brand?
it. Yeah.
Leatherman makes these multi-tools. Okay.
A knife without the extra tools?
They have a knife with them. Okay, be honest with you, I'm not really impressed with their knives, but the rest of the tools pretty good. I think, it's a whole lot better than nothing, all right? But if I'm going to be doing wood carving, I want a substantial knife that I'm using, all right? Yeah. So anyway, I have some of these to loan. If you're in the market for a knife, there's a person who works with us in our ministry in California, and they got a Mora dealership, so they can order knives, and they ordered some knives for me to bring with us to sell, and guess what? The knives arrived the day after we left. So anyway, he sent with us what he has, which are some of the more top-end knives. So if you know what you want in a knife, we have these for sale if you're interested in them. And he's selling them for just slightly above cost. So, our burden is to get these tools into the hands of God's people.
Although I'll warn you, I don't have very many left. Most of the other groups already bought them. And he didn't send very many with us.
Yeah, because he didn't have very much.
Don't say you want one, just see them. You might not like it. So,
Yeah,
you need to see the knife first.
right.
Don't you think so? Probably. Never buy a knife you haven't seen.
Yeah,
You don't know what you're looking at.
yeah. Okay. So I have these for loaners. Please take them out of the bag and then remove them to the bag. Whenever you're using it, or when you stop using it, stick it back in the sheath. Notice it will go the wrong way into the sheath, but it won't click like that. You put it in this way, it'll click, okay, and then it won't fall out. If you put it in the wrong way, it won't click, and it will fall out anyway, I pushed it in there a little too hard.
I don't want to see your knives laying on the ground out of the sheath. So if it's
Right.
down, you put it in the sheath.
Right.
You don't want to see anyone cutting on a rock or cutting on your leg. Make sure you use the chopping blocks, okay? Because we don't want anyone to get injured.
Now, just as in the kitchen, she mentioned chopping blocks. Just as in the kitchen, you use a cutting board very frequently with your knife. When you're wood carving, you want a chopping block. And so Rick got these for us. I think they will work very well. Use the chopping block. Okay, if I'm trying to, I'm just going to pick this stick here and use my finger like a knife. If I'm trying to carve this, I'm having to push down, which means I'm having to push up with my other hand. I'm wasting a lot of energy there. And along with wasting that energy goes accuracy. On the other hand, if I can balance this here, it takes very little energy, and all my energy can go into making that cut exactly where I want the cut to go, rather than it dancing around in my hand because I'm pushing down a little extra hard or something. The one thing you need to remember with using the chopping block, if I'm cutting, say down like this, if that slips, again, you're thinking, where's it gonna go if it slips? That slips, I'm mashing my knuckles into the top of the block. That can get really painful if I'm putting any kind of pressure there. So position this over by the edge so the blade will hit. My knuckles are out here off to the side somewhere and they're not getting bashed and bloodied. Okay? I learned that one the hard way. You don't have to. Carving projects. I want to encourage most of you to make a digging stick. Okay, again, this is your primitive multi-tool. All right, and let me give you a little bit about digging stick anatomy. Can you tell which end was closest to the ground, which end was sticking up in the sky?
That end on the ground.
Okay, yeah, this end was towards the branch, towards the trunk. Here's the branch going up. Primitive skills circles, it sounds a little new agey, but there's really nothing new agey about it. We call this earth end because that's closest to the earth, and this is sky end because it's closest to the sky. All right? So earth end and sky end. You're making a point. The sky end is narrower anyway, so make the point on sky end. You're using this earth end as a mallet. You want more massive in the mallet, so use the earth end for mallet. Okay? This is a good length. I personally like them a little bit longer, like another this much, but this fits into the pack nicely. I didn't want something sticking out of the end of the pack, so I couldn't close the pack. So you can, get that kind of length. Don't get much longer than that because then when you're using it as a mallet, you have a whole bunch sticking out here. This is like the hammer length. That's the perfect size for a mallet. And they figured that out a long time ago, and that's why they make hammers that same length, because that's just the way it works. If you have a lot of extra stick out here, that's acting as a counterbalance, and you can't get the same amount of force or accuracy because of that. So I want to aim most of you towards making a digging stick if you're so inclined. Especially if you're new at carving. This is a real good first project. Another possible first project would be an eating utensil. Pull out some more tools here. Okay, this is a real simple little eating utensil. All right, I've eaten a lot of meals with something just simple like this. Okay, if you know how to use chopsticks, that works really good too. That's another simple eating utensil. I can do chopsticks, but I'm not good at it. And so just a little flattened stick spatula like this. Doesn't scoop stuff up like a spoon, but you can still, if it has any body, it'll stay there enough to make it worth sticking in your mouth. Or you can pick up chunks of whatever it is in the stew and so on. So this might be something else that you might consider making. All right, real simple little project. The trick with this is to flatten this out here. When most people, when they start making these, they're like very wedge shaped. To get it to flatten out like that, there's a little bit of trick to that. Anybody want to take a closer look at this one? Okay, if you feel that you are already pretty good at carving, okay, if you already have a certain amount of skill, I don't want any new carvers tackling this next project I'm going to talk about. But if you already have some skill at carving, I do have some wood here that would make good spoons. And I have the tool for hollowing out the bowl of the spoon. And so if you want to carve a spoon, I'll let you do that. But if you're a new carver, don't tackle a spoon, okay? Spoon is like, it's another league. It's in a different league than just these other simple projects that I'm turning you loose on.